The great space station called Argon Prime floated like a silent giant in the middle of the galaxy. Ships from many worlds came and went, their silver bodies glowing against the endless dark. It was a place of trade, peace, and secret deals. Humans, aliens, and machines walked its wide halls every day. Captain Daniel Reeves, a human pilot, stepped out of his small ship and into the bright corridors. He had just finished a long patrol in the Outer Rim, chasing smugglers and dodging pirates. His uniform was neat, though his face showed the tired lines of someone who had seen too much. He wanted nothing more than a quiet drink, a warm meal, and maybe a few hours of sleep. As he walked through the station's main hall, Daniel noticed how different species moved around him. Tall beings with crystal skin, short traders with 4 arms and strange floating shapes that hummed softly. But he was used to this. Humanity had been part of the interstellar community for over a century now. He had seen it all, or so he thought. He stopped at a food stall run by a cheerful alien. Cook. The smell of roasted spices filled the air. Daniel ordered a plate of noodles and sat at a corner table, enjoying the simple taste. The noise of the crowd was a background hum. For once, he felt almost at peace. But that peace ended quickly. Sudden hush spread through the hall. Conversations stopped. Traders paused mid-bargain. Even the floating creatures froze in place. Daniel felt the change in the air before he saw the reason. He turned slowly. Walking through the crowd was a warrior, unlike any he had ever seen. She was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had fought 100 battles. Her armor was dark silver, decorated with sharp patterns that glowed faintly. On her back rested a long blade, too heavy for most beings to lift. The crowd parted for her as if they feared her presence. Whispers followed her steps. Daniel caught fragments. Drakari warrior. Blood champion. Why is she here? Daniel frowned. The Drakari were a powerful warrior species known for their strength, pride, and unshakable honor. They were respected and feared. A Drakari commander did not appear in a neutral station without reason. The warrior's eyes locked onto him, cold, sharp, and unwavering. She walked straight toward his table. Daniel set his fork down slowly. His hand itched to reach for his sidearm, but something told him not to. He stayed still, his soldier's instincts awake now. The warrior stopped before him. Her presence was heavy, like a storm waiting to strike. Beside her stood a boy, small, quiet, and holding her armored hand. The boy's face was partly hidden, but Daniel noticed something strange. The child looked familiar. The warrior's voice cut through the silence of the hall. It was strong, proud, and without doubt. "Human," she said, her tone commanding. "Meet your son." The words struck like thunder. The crowd gasped. Someone dropped a tray. A trader muttered in disbelief. Daniel blinked. For a moment, he thought he had misheard. "What?" he asked, his voice low. The warrior's gaze did not move. She gestured toward the boy. "This is Terran. He carries your blood." Daniel's mind raced. He had never seen this warrior in his life. He had never been to Drakari territory, never spoken with one of their kind beyond official meetings. And now one stood before him, declaring that he had a son? "This is some kind of mistake," Daniel said firmly. He stood facing her at eye level. "I don't know you. I've never met you. And I certainly don't have a son." The boy stepped forward then, and Daniel froze. The child's eyes, deep, curious, and bright, were human eyes. His small hands, though stronger than normal, looked human. Even the way he tilted his head reminded Daniel of himself. The warrior placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. Her voice lowered, but her words were clear. "You may not remember me, human, but fate remembers you. The proof stands here." Daniel shook his head. This is insane. The silence of the hall grew heavier. Dozens of beings were now watching, waiting to see what would happen next. A human captain and a Drakari. Commander, locked in a strange and dangerous moment, Daniel forced himself to breathe. He looked at the boy again. The child stared back with wide eyes, not afraid, not shy, just curious. "Who are you?" Daniel finally asked the warrior. She straightened, proud as a mountain. "I am Kalyra of the Drakari, commander of the 3rd Legion. I do not lie, and I do not mistake blood." Her words were final, sharp as steel. Daniel rubbed his temple. This could not be real. Yet deep inside, a seed of doubt began to grow. The boy's face, his eyes. Kalyra's voice rose once more, strong enough for the entire hall to hear. "This child is yours, human. Deny it if you wish, but destiny cannot be denied," the hall whispered again. Some voices laughed nervously, others whispered in awe. A human and a Drakari, 2 species that should never mix. Yet here was a boy who might be both. Daniel felt the weight of every eye on him. His noodles sat forgotten on the table. His quiet meal had turned into something that might change his life forever. He stared at the warrior, then at the boy, then back again. His heart beat fast, though his soldier's face stayed calm. And in that moment, Captain Daniel Reeves knew one thing for certain. Whatever this was, it was only the beginning. Daniel stood frozen, his soldier's training keeping him calm on the outside, but inside, his thoughts raced like fire. The warrior before him was tall, dangerous, and too sure of her claim. And the boy, Taran, stood quietly between them. His eyes fixed on Daniel as if he was waiting for something. Around them, the crowd whispered like a restless tide. Traders leaned in, smugglers grinned, diplomats frowned, and curious travelers watched with wide eyes. No one wanted to miss this. "Strange drama," Daniel finally spoke, his voice controlled. "You've made a mistake. I don't know you, and I've never met this child before today." Kalyra's sharp eyes narrowed, but she did not raise her voice. She answered with steady confidence. "There is no mistake, human. My people do not play with blood. The boy is yours. The signs are clear." Daniel shook his head firmly. "Impossible. I've never been near your kind. I've fought battles, yes. I've flown patrols near your borders, but I've never—" He stopped himself. He didn't want to explain his life story in front of 100 strangers. Kalyra did not flinch. She gestured toward Taran. "Look at him. His eyes carry your human spark. His hands shaped like yours. Even his voice bends toward your tongue." The boy tilted his head at Daniel, and then, in a soft voice, he spoke a single word. "Father." The sound cut through Daniel like a blade. He stared at the boy in shock. Taran's accent was strange, but the word was clear, and it was English. How does he even know that word?" Daniel muttered. Kalyra stood taller, her armor catching the light. "He knows because he is drawn to you. Blood knows blood." Daniel clenched his jaw. "Or maybe you taught him to say that. Maybe this is some trick, a trap." The crowd gasped at his accusation, but Kalyra did not lose her temper. Instead, she slowly pulled a small device from her armor. It looked like a silver crystal, glowing faintly. She pressed it, and a holographic screen appeared in the air. The screen showed numbers, images, and lines of genetic code. Daniel recognized it instantly. It was a DNA scan. His stomach tightened. Kalyra spoke firmly, her voice carrying like thunder. "Here is the proof. His blood carries mine, and his blood carries yours." Daniel stared at the hologram. The strands of DNA floated across the screen, bright blue and red lines crossing together. He didn't want to believe it. He couldn't. But the patterns, they looked too close to his own. "This doesn't make sense," Daniel whispered. "Kalyra's." Eyes softened slightly, though her face was still strong. It was 5 years ago. The war against the Krith. You were there, fighting in the Rift Sector. Daniel's mind flashed back. The Rift Sector. Yes, he had been there. A chaotic battlefield, where human fleets clashed with alien raiders. Strange storms of energy had torn through space. Ships had vanished. Physics itself had bent. He remembered his ship being struck by a wave of light that had left his instruments fried for days. Yes, he said slowly. I was there. But I never saw you. You did not need to, Kalira answered. The rift storm took pieces of us both. Fragments of flesh, strands of essence woven together by the storm's power. My healers found the change within me soon after. Months later, Taryn was born. Daniel rubbed his forehead. You're saying some storm took part of me, mixed it with you, and created him? That's not possible. Kalira's voice was like iron. It is not impossible. He lives. The boy shifted nervously, looking between them. Daniel noticed again how his eyes shone with a human spark. Yet his stance, his quiet strength, was Drakari. He was something between both worlds. The crowd grew louder with whispers. Some were shocked, others laughed in disbelief, but a few muttered words like symbol and future. Daniel caught them, and it made him uneasy. He leaned closer to Kalira, keeping his voice low. Why bring him to me now? Why here, in front of everyone? Kalira's eyes were hard as stone. Because others have begun to notice him. Enemies whisper. The Krith have learned of his existence. They want him, for their own dark purpose. I could not hide him forever. He must know who he is, and you must know too. Daniel's heart sank. This was worse than a trap. If what she said was true, then this boy wasn't just a mystery, he was a target, a dangerous one. I didn't ask for this, Daniel said, his voice heavy. Kalira straightened. Neither did I. Yet here he stands. Your blood, my blood. The choice is not ours anymore. Daniel looked at Taryn again. The boy's small hand clutched Kalira's armored fingers tightly. But his eyes, those human eyes, never left Daniel's face. There was no fear there, only curiosity. Why me? Daniel whispered to himself. Before Kalira could answer, a sharp noise cut through the hall. A group of station guards marched forward, their armor bright and their weapons ready. The leader, a tall officer with a silver badge, raised his voice. What is happening here? He demanded. There is talk of a Drakari commander making claims in our station. Explain yourselves. Kalira did not bow. She turned her head slowly toward the officer. There is nothing to explain. This is truth. The boy's father has been found. The officer frowned and looked at Daniel. Captain Reeves, is this true? Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came out. He wanted to deny it, to say it was all a mistake. But the hologram of the DNA, the boy's eyes, the memory of the rift storm, they all clawed at his mind. I don't know, he admitted, at last. The officer's eyes narrowed. Then, until the truth is clear, this matter will be handled by the station council. Both of you will come for questioning, and the boy will remain under protection. Kalira's jaw tightened, but she did not resist. She turned back to Daniel, her voice low and final. You may run from your past, human, but you cannot run from blood. Soon, you will see. Daniel looked at her, then at the boy, then at the crowd that still whispered around them. His life had changed in a single moment. He had thought he was just a pilot, a soldier, a man with scars of old wars. But now, he was something else, something he did not yet understand, and deep in his heart, despite his denial, a quiet voice whispered, What if it's true? The council chamber of Argon Prime was a wide, shining hall made of glass and steel. At its center was a round table where members of many races sat. They wore robes, armor, or mechanical shells, each showing their power in different ways. Above them floated a large hollow screen where records and images could be displayed. Daniel Reeves stood near the center with Kalira and young Taryn. Guards waited at the edges of the room, silent but watchful. The air was tense. The story of a human and Drakari having a child had already spread across the station like fire. Traders argued about it in bars. Diplomats whispered in secret halls. Everyone wanted to know if it was true. Daniel felt heavy, as if the weight of the whole galaxy was pressing on his shoulders. He still did not believe the claim, but doubt had started to eat at him. The boy looked too much like him. The council leader, an alien with crystal skin that shimmered under the lights, raised her hand. Her voice was calm but sharp. "Captain Daniel Reeves, Commander Kalira of the Drakari. You stand here with a child whose existence has caused great disturbance. We require the truth. Evidence must be shown." Kalira stepped forward with firm steps. She held the silver crystal device again and activated it. The hollow screen filled with glowing strands of DNA. The council members leaned forward, studying the details. "This is the blood of the child," Kalira declared. Her voice carried through the chamber, strong and proud. "Drakari blood and human blood. Both live inside him." The hologram shifted, showing two sets of genetic code. One side was red and jagged, clearly alien. The other side was blue and smooth, human. Slowly, the two merged in the center, forming a unique pattern. "This blue pattern," Kalira continued, "was traced to Captain Reeves. His records in the human military database confirm it." Daniel's heart pounded. His own DNA records were part of his service file. Of course, the Drakari could have accessed it. But still, the match on the screen was too precise. The council chamber filled with whispers. Some members nodded, others frowned. One alien with green, scaled skin spoke with doubt. "Such mixing should not be possible. Our sciences say Drakari and human life cannot combine." Kalira turned to him. "The rift storm made it possible. It tore apart the laws of nature. It fused our essence. What was impossible became real. That is how Taryn was born." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered the rift storm again, the lightning across the stars, the way his ship shook as if space itself was tearing. He had never understood what happened that day. Now Kalira's words echoed in his mind. But even if it was true, he could not just accept it so easily. He opened his eyes and spoke clearly. "DNA can be copied. Records can be stolen. I need more than numbers and glowing lines. I need something real." The council leader looked at Kalira. "Do you have more proof?" Kalira nodded. She touched Taryn's shoulder gently and pushed him forward. The boy looked nervous but did not resist. His small hand held a round object, smooth and black. He placed it on the table. "This," Kalira said, "is the boy's test stone. In my people's tradition, children are given this to show their true nature. It responds only to the blood within. Watch." Taryn pressed his hand on the stone. For a moment it was dark. Then it began to glow, half red, half blue. The red was the fiery glow of the Drakari. The blue was the calm light of humanity. Together, they pulsed in one steady rhythm. The chamber went silent. Even Daniel felt his breath catch. This was no trick. This was something alive, something beyond numbers. The council leader leaned back slowly. "The boy is truly both, human and Drakari, a rare thing, perhaps the first." The whispers in the chamber grew louder now. Some members looked excited, others fearful. Daniel could almost hear their thoughts. Trade, politics, war, alliance. The boy could change everything. Kalira's voice rang out again. He is not a weapon. He is not a tool for your games. He is my son, and he is his son. She pointed at Daniel. Daniel froze. Everyone's eyes turned to him. The boy's gaze was the heaviest of all. Taryn's eyes searched his face, waiting for something. Daniel wanted to deny it again, to push the responsibility away, but his voice caught in his throat. He saw the boy's small hand resting on the glowing stone, the way the light pulsed with his touch. He saw his own eyes staring back at him from the child's face. Still, his soldier's mind resisted. Even if this is true, he said carefully, why bring him here? Why reveal this in the middle of a crowded station? Why me, after all this time? Kalira's proud face finally showed a hint of sorrow. Because I can no longer protect him alone. The Krith have learned of him. They hunt him even now. They will not stop. He carries power that frightens them. They wish to capture him or destroy him. The name sent a ripple through the chamber. The Krith, ruthless invaders, feared across many systems. They thrived on chaos and conquest. If they wanted the boy, the danger was greater than Daniel had imagined. Daniel clenched his fists. So you brought him to me, to throw him into my arms and hope I can do better? Kalira looked at him directly, her voice low but strong. No, I brought him to his father, because no matter what you say, no one can protect him as you can. He needs both of us. The chamber was quiet again. The council members looked at each other uncertain. The boy stepped closer to Daniel. His small voice carried across the silence. Father, is it true? Daniel's chest tightened. The boy's eyes shone with hope, not fear. It was not about politics, not about science, not about war. It was just a child asking for an answer. Daniel swallowed hard. He could not say yes. Not yet. But he could not say no either. I don't know, Daniel said softly. Taryn's face fell, but he did not cry. He only nodded as if he understood. The council leader stood, raising her hand again. This matter is grave. The child's existence may change the balance of power in the galaxy. Until more is decided, the boy will remain under protection here on Argon Prime. Both Captain Reeves and Commander Kalira will share responsibility for his safety. Daniel felt the ground shift beneath him. His life was no longer his own. Hede was now tied to the boy, to Kalira, and to whatever storm was coming. As the council dismissed the chamber, Daniel looked at Taryn one more time. The boy's hand reached toward him, small and unsure. Daniel hesitated, then slowly placed his own hand near it, not touching, not yet, but close. The proof was there, shining in front of him. But proof was only the beginning. The council chamber emptied slowly, but the tension did not fade. Daniel Reeves walked through the shining halls of Argon Prime with heavy steps. On one side of him walked Kalira, tall and armored, her face set like stone. On the other side walked Taryn, small and quiet, his hand brushing against Daniel's coat as if searching for comfort. Daniel's mind was still full of questions. Was the boy truly his? Could the strange storm of 5 years ago really have created life from 2 worlds? His soldier's mind demanded logic, but his heart was less certain. Each time he looked at Taryn's eyes, he saw something that made his chest ache. They reached the quarters given to them by the council, 3 simple rooms with metal walls and narrow beds. Guards were posted outside to protect them, but Daniel knew the truth. The council did not trust Kalira, and they did not trust him either. The boy was the only one who mattered. Kalira spoke at last, her voice low. The council is weak. They speak of protection, but their walls are soft. The Krith will strike soon. Daniel looked at her sharply. You sound very sure. I am Drakari, she replied firmly. We know our enemies. The Krith are hunters. When they smell blood, they come quickly. And now, they smell him. She nodded toward Taran. The boy sat quietly on his bed, staring at the floor. Daniel walked over and crouched down in front of him. You all right, kid? He asked softly. Taran looked up. His voice was small, but clear. They don't want me here. Daniel frowned. Who? The people outside, the guards, the council. They all look at me like I don't belong. Daniel felt a twist in his chest. He had seen that look before, on human colonies where strangers were judged for being different. He sighed. Doesn't matter what they think. What matters is what you do. You keep your head up, understand? Taran nodded slowly. For the first time, a small smile touched his lips. Before Daniel could say more, alarms suddenly blared through the station. Red lights flashed on the ceiling and a metallic voice shouted, Warning! Unidentified ships detected at the outer rim. Possible hostile approach. Kalira's head snapped up. The Krith! Daniel stood quickly. You don't know that? Yes, she said coldly. I do. Moments later, a council officer appeared at their door. His face was pale. Captain Reeves, Commander Kalira, the station is under threat. We request your assistance. Daniel grabbed his blaster from the wall. His soldier's instincts were awake now. What's the situation? 5 Krith raiders, the officer said, his voice shaking. They are demanding access to the station. They claim they are looking for a child. Daniel swore under his breath. Kalira drew her blade, the long weapon glowing faintly. They have found us. The guards outside moved into position. But Daniel knew they would not be enough. Krith raiders were ruthless. They fought like wolves, tearing through defenses until nothing remained. The officer looked nervous. The council orders that the child be moved to the inner chambers for protection. Kalira's eyes burned. No. They will break through your chambers as they break through walls of paper. The boy stays with us. The officer hesitated, then nodded quickly. He knew she was right. The alarms grew louder. Explosions shook the walls as the raiders fired on the station's shields. Daniel could feel the battle beginning outside. He turned to Taran. Stay close. Do exactly as I say. The boy nodded, his face pale but determined. Moments later, the first attack came. The station doors burst open with fire, and armored figures stormed inside. The Krith were tall and dark, their armor jagged, their faces hidden behind masks. Their weapons glowed with sickly green light. The guards fired first, but the Krith pushed forward without fear. Daniel raised his blaster and shot with soldier's precision, dropping 2 raiders in quick bursts. Kalira charged with a roar, her blade slicing through armor as if it were cloth. The air was filled with shouts, blasts, and the clash of steel. Taran stood frozen at first, but then something strange happened. His eyes glowed faintly, a mix of blue and red light. He raised his small hand without thinking. One of the Krith raiders charging toward him was suddenly thrown back by an invisible force, slamming against the wall. Daniel's eyes widened. What? Kalira shouted over the chaos. His power is awakening! The boy looked at his hand in shock. He had not known he could do it. But Daniel saw no fear in his face, only wonder. Stay focused! Daniel shouted, firing again. The battle raged. Daniel and Kalira fought side by side, though they had never trained together. She moved with the strength of a warrior, striking down enemies with sheer force. He moved with the precision of a soldier, using strategy and cover to protect their position. Together they formed an unbreakable wall around the boy. More Krith pushed into the hall, their weapons glowing. Daniel knew they could not hold forever. He looked at Kalira. "We need to move, now!" She nodded sharply. "To the docking bay! My ship waits!" They fought their way down the corridor step by step, blast by blast. Daniel covered the rear, firing at raiders who tried to follow. Kalira led the way, her blade cutting a path forward. Terran stayed close, his small body pressed between them, but his eyes glowed again whenever danger came too near. Twice more, Krith raiders were thrown, back by his strange force. Finally, they reached the docking bay. Kalira's ship stood ready, a black Drakari warcraft, sharp and sleek. "Inside," she ordered. Daniel guided Terran up the ramp while Kalira cut down the last raiders near the door. As soon as they were aboard, the ship's engines roared to life. The docking bay doors opened and the ship shot out into the stars. Behind them, Argon Prime still burned under attack. Krith raiders circled the station like vultures, firing beams of green light into its shields. Daniel sat in the co-pilot's chair, breathing hard. Kalira gripped the controls, her face fierce. Terran sat between them, wide-eyed but steady. "They'll follow us," Daniel said grimly. "Yes," Kalira answered. "But let them. Together we will not fall." Daniel glanced at her, then at the boy. He had to admit it. Kalira was right about one thing. Alone, they would not survive. But together, maybe they had a chance. Terran looked at him, his voice small but certain. "Father, I helped." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He wanted to deny the word, to push it away, but after what he had just seen, the boy's strange power, his courage, Daniel could not deny it so easily. "Yes," he said softly. "You helped." And for the first time, he began to believe that maybe the boy truly was his son. The stars stretched endlessly outside the window of Kalira's ship. The black Drakari craft glided quietly through space, far from Argon Prime and the battle that had shaken it. The hum of the engines was steady, but inside the cabin, silence filled the air. Daniel sat in the co-pilot's chair, his arms crossed, his face thoughtful. Kalira sat at the controls, her eyes fixed on the starlight ahead. And between them, in a smaller seat, sat Terran. The boy's head tilted as he watched the stars, his eyes glowing faintly with curiosity. No one spoke for a long time. The chaos of the fight still burned in their minds, the blaster fire, the clash of blades, and the boy's sudden power. Daniel replayed the moment again and again. Terran had thrown those raiders back without touching them. The force had come from inside him like a storm hidden in a child's heart. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "So, you knew he could do that?" Kalira shook her head. "I knew he was different, stronger than others his age, but I did not know he carried such force already." Daniel frowned. "And you never told him?" "He is Drakari," Kalira said firmly. "Among my people, strength reveals itself when the time is right. We do not speak of it until then." Daniel leaned back, frustrated. "He's not just Drakari. He's half human. You can't just leave him in the dark and hope for the best." Kalira's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Terran looked between them. "Am I wrong?" he asked softly. Both adults turned to him. Daniel's heart twisted at the question. "No, kid," Daniel said quickly. "You're not wrong. You're just different. And sometimes different scares people. But it can also make you stronger." Terran's small hands gripped the seat. "When I pushed those men away, I didn't mean to hurt them. It just happened." Daniel softened his voice. "That's okay. You were protecting yourself, protecting us. But you need to learn control. Power without control is dangerous." Kalira's eyes flicked toward Daniel. There was no anger there this time, only thought. For the next few hours, the ship drifted quietly. They had escaped the raiders, but Daniel knew the Krith would not give up. They needed a plan. But for now, the boy needed peace. Later, Daniel found Terran sitting alone in the ship's small mess hall, staring at a plate of food Kalira had given him. It was Drakari rations, dry and bitter. The boy poked at it without interest. Daniel sat across from him with a small grin. "Not hungry?" Terran wrinkled his nose. "It tastes sharp." Daniel chuckled. He opened a small pack he had kept in his bag, a human ration bar. "Try this instead." He broke it in half and handed it to the boy. Terran took a bite. His eyes widened. "Sweet," Daniel laughed. "Yeah, human food's not all bad." The boy smiled for real this time. Daniel felt a strange warmth in his chest. It was the first time Terran had looked like a normal kid, and not a symbol of something greater. Kalira entered quietly, watching the two of them. Her gaze softened when she saw Terran smile. For the first time, Daniel thought he saw a different side of her, less warrior, more mother. Over the next days, while they hid among distant stars, Daniel began to teach Terran little things. He showed him how to play simple games with dice, how to tell stories, and even how to laugh at mistakes. "Humor," Daniel explained one night, "is a human weapon too. It keeps us strong when things are hard." Terran tried to tell a joke of his own, and though it made little sense, Daniel laughed loudly anyway. The boy's eyes shone with pride. Kalira watched all of this quietly. At first, she did not understand. To her, time spent on games and laughter was wasted time. A warrior trained with discipline and silence. But slowly, she began to see something else in her son's face. Joy. Hope. One evening, when Terran had gone to sleep, Kalira spoke softly to Daniel. "You give him things I cannot. I see it now." Daniel looked at her, surprised. "You mean letting him be a kid?" "Yes," Kalira said. "Among my people, children are taught only discipline. We train them to be strong, to fight, to survive. But you teach him to smile, to dream. Perhaps that is why he looks at you the way he does." Daniel sighed. "And maybe that's why he needs both of us. You give him strength. I give him something else." Kalira nodded slowly, her sharp face softer than before, but the peace did not last. 3 days later, the ship's sensors lit up. Blips appeared on the screen, fast, moving closer. Krith raiders, Daniel's soldiers' instincts snapped awake. "They've found us." Kalira gripped the controls. "We cannot outrun them this time." Daniel checked his blaster. Then, "We fight!" Terran appeared in the doorway, his eyes wide. "They're coming for me!" Daniel knelt in front of him. "Listen, Terran, you're not alone. We're going to keep you safe. But you need to be brave." The boy swallowed, then nodded. "I'll try." Kalira stood, her blade already glowing. "Not try. Do. You are Drakari." Daniel put a hand on Terran's shoulder. "And you're human. That means you never give up, no matter what." The boy looked between them, his mother's fire, his father's calm strength, and for the first time, he felt whole. The raiders drew closer on the screen. The storm was coming again. Daniel rose, blaster ready. Kalira raised her blade. Terran stood between them, his small fists clenched, his eyes glowing faintly with blue and red light. This time, they would face the threat together. The ship shook violently as the Krith raiders closed in. Red warning lights flashed across the cockpit. The hunters had tracked them across half the sector, and now there was no escape. Kalira's hands flew over the controls, her sharp eyes fixed on the incoming enemy ships. Daniel strapped himself in, blaster at the ready. Between them, Terran stood tall, his young face filled with fear, but also with determination. "They won't stop," Daniel muttered. "They want the boy. They We'll not have him, Kaelira answered coldly, her warrior's blade glowing faintly at her side. The first blasts shook the ship. Energy fire burned across the shields, sparks leaping from the panels. Kaelira dove the craft into a wild spin, dodging beams of light. Daniel held onto the seat as the stars whipped past. We can't keep running. They'll tear us apart. Kaelira's jaw tightened. Then we strike back. Daniel turned to Taryn, kneeling to meet his eyes. Listen to me, kid. This is it. They're coming for you, but you're not alone. Your mother and I, we'll fight for you. But you have to fight for yourself, too. Do you understand? Taryn swallowed hard. His small hands trembled, but he nodded. I'll try. Daniel smiled softly. No, you will, because you're mine. The words lit something deep inside the boy's heart. The Krith boarded quickly. Metal claws latched onto the ship's hull, and the screech of cutting tools filled the corridors. The lights flickered as the raiders forced their way in. Kaelira stood ready with her glowing blade. Daniel aimed his blaster at the door. Taryn stood between them, breathing fast, his eyes glowing faintly with red and blue sparks. The door burst open. Black-armored Krith warriors stormed inside, their weapons crackling. "Take the child!" one of them roared. Kaelira moved first, her blade a blur of silver and fire. Daniel's blaster lit the hallway, every shot precise. But the Krith were too many. They surged forward like a wave. "Taryn!" Daniel shouted. "Focus! Remember what you felt before? Control it!" The boy's chest heaved. Fear rose inside him like a storm. The raiders closed in. One grabbed his arm. "No!" Taryn cried. A burst of energy exploded from him, throwing the raiders back like rag dolls. The walls shook. Sparks rained down. Daniel shielded his face, stunned by the force. Kaelira's eyes widened. His power, it grows. But Taryn staggered, almost falling. Daniel caught him. "Easy, son. You're okay. But listen, power is not just about strength. It's about choice. Do you hear me? You have to choose what kind of man you want to be." The boy's glowing eyes locked onto Daniel's. "What do I choose?" Daniel smiled through the chaos. "Choose to protect, not to destroy." More Krith poured in. The leader stepped forward, a towering figure in dark armor, his voice deep and cruel. "The child belongs to us. He is the key to a new age. Give him to me, and I will let you live." Kaelira bared her teeth. "He belongs to no one but himself." Daniel raised his blaster. "And he already has a family," the Krith leader sneered. "You are weak. Humanity is weak. The Drakari are stubborn. Together you cannot stand against us." Taryn stepped forward. His small body trembled, but his voice was steady. "You're wrong," the leader laughed. "And why is that, child?" Taryn's eyes glowed brighter, the blue of his human spirit mixing with the red fire of his Drakari blood. "Because I am both, and that makes me stronger than you, Thee." Leader roared and charged. Time seemed to slow. Daniel lifted his blaster. Kaelira swung her blade, but it was Taryn who moved first. He raised his hands and a wave of pure energy surged outward. The force struck the Krith leader, lifting him off his feet and slamming him against the wall. His weapon shattered, his armor cracked. The other raiders hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes. Taryn's voice echoed through the chamber, strong and clear. "Leave us. Now." For a moment, silence filled the air. Then, one by one, the raiders retreated, dragging their broken leader with them, the sound of their ship detaching. From the hull rang like victory. The room fell quiet. Smoke drifted in the air. Daniel lowered his blaster, staring at the boy. Kaelira slowly deactivated her blade. Taryn wavered on his feet, exhausted. Daniel rushed forward, catching him. "Easy, son. You did it. You chose right." The boy looked up at him, eyes dimming back to normal. "Am I really your son?" Daniel's throat tightened. He pulled the boy into his arms, holding him close. Yes, you always were. I just needed to see it. Kalira stepped closer, her warrior's face soft for the first time. She laid a hand on Taryn's shoulder. You are strong, my child. Stronger than I ever imagined. And together, we will guide you. Daniel met her eyes. For the first time, there was no tension, no battle between them, only respect. Later, as the ship drifted in quiet space, Daniel sat with Taryn at his side. The boy leaned against him, already asleep, his small hand clutching Daniel's sleeve. Kalira stood nearby, watching. He has both our blood, both our ways. Perhaps that is his true strength. Daniel nodded slowly. He's the bridge between us, between human and Drakari. Kalira's eyes softened. And with that, he may change more than just us. Perhaps he can change the future. Daniel looked down at the boy, his heart full. Then we'll make sure he has one. The stars shone brightly outside, endless and full of promise. And for the first time, Daniel did not feel alone. He had found his son, and together they would face whatever came next.